Hello everyone, and welcome to this strange experience of Zoom. Usually I'm in the room with people and I have a sense of how they are and work with whatever arises between us, and now I'm just looking at a screen. So for me also, this is something very strange and new. But it also highlights the impermanent nature of every situation we're in. I had my diary prepared for teaching all through spring and the summer, and now it's closed. It's not possible to travel. So this is a strong reminder for us when we hear the people who are dying. This also can happen to us. What we think is our life, what we think is our future is really not in the palm of our hand. There are many, many forces operating through us which can change at any time. So we can at least get some Dharma encouragement out of this terrible crisis which is around. Also, we're doing this talk through the hospitality of Kamalashila. I am a traveling Dharma teacher. I don't have any center, and so I rely on the hospitality of different centers. And I've been going to Kamalashila for many years and have always had a good welcome there and find it to be a proper, ethical, focused Dharma environment. And there are not so many of these in the world. So part of the function of my talk today is also to encourage, if you feel like it, to give some dana for the Kamalashila to help them continue with the good work. Because as we know, in every area, there's a lot of Dharma, there's a lot of financial consequences to the economic changes of people being locked inside, and that affects Dharma centers as well, which doesn't have a big financial backing to it. So now with the virus, we see there's more understanding in the population about suffering. People are worried about friends, they're worried about their own family, people they know, they see terrible pictures. And suddenly, oh yes, suffering exists. If we have an interest from the Buddhist point of view, then we're very open to the first teaching of the Buddha. The first of the Four Noble Truths is the fact of suffering. Suffering is not an accident.
No, sound is
Something we
when it's gone.
Go again to the join with them.
So when we feel this suffering around us, if we are involved in the Buddha's teachings, we have to think this is the truth. Suffering is not an accident. And why are we surprised? Suffering is everywhere. We know, battling in the Yemen, many places in the Middle East, in Africa, suffering is everywhere. And when we don't see suffering, it's usually a sign that we have become a little bit dull, that we tune into our own world, our middle-class complacency, the fact that we have safety from mobs and cruel gangs coming out of the forest with machetes. But many people are exposed to this all the time. So when we feel our suffering, our task is always to make it a universal suffering, to have more sympathy, more connectivity with the pain which is pervasive everywhere. Suffering is one of the things that unites all sentient beings in all the six realms, whether it's in the hells or the God realms. There is always present some change, some diminishment in the ease of being and the capacity to reflect. So suffering now is a very precious thing for us to think about. Now, the title for today is going to focus on the emptiness and equanimity and kindness. And there's a reason for it being in that order, that if we don't have emptiness, as many teachers, particularly the Dalai Lama, have pointed out, if you don't have an understanding of emptiness, then although you may develop a good heart and kindness and be responsive to other people, you don't go deep, and you don't have the basis for transforming your own appreciation of the world. You don't go beyond duality and ignorance, and the kindness and good deeds that you set up are there just in the moment. They get dispersed very easily. So the first thing we have to do is to look at the nature of emptiness. And all the different schools of Buddhism have some attention to emptiness. In the general Theravadan view, we're concerned with the 3 marks of conditioned existence, with suffering, impermanence, and the absence of inherent self-nature, or the absence of any self-essence defining phenomena. What does this mean? Particularly the third one, suffering, is fairly obvious, though we'll return to it. Impermanence we see all around us. We see it in our body, in our breath, in the wind in the trees. But the absence of inherent self-nature or self-essence existence is more difficult often to see. So the Buddha explained this in terms of the 5 skandhas, that we take ourselves to be a person. I am James, I exist, I can tell you my history. So I have a sense, I've always been James. It feels completely normal, natural for me to be James. But when we look at it in terms of the 5 skandhas, we see, oh, James is composed out of form. That is to say, there is shape, there is color. In this shape and color that I embody, there is sensations, positive, negative, neutral. Inside that, there are particular kinds of perceptions and experiences in which events arise, and I think about them and I formulate them in terms of something is happening out there or in here. Then this is fed into and enriched by our associations, by the compoundedness out of which we generate our sense of who we are. And then finally, our consciousness, which is our capacity to know something, formulates the narrative of ourself, which is linked to the narrative of our parents, our schools, the shops we go to, and so on. Through the functioning of the 5 skandhas, we take the stories that we tell about ourselves to be the basis of our existence. We're essentially inhabiting a myth of our individual existence. And when you see, oh, these 5 pieces moving together create patterns, pattern after pattern after pattern, but actually you can't find any essence in it. There is nothing secure in it. How you were in the morning is not how you are now. When you wake up tomorrow morning, you've no idea what your mood will be, how your body will feel. That is to say, the phenomena, the actual arising of how it is to be me, is influenced by many, many forces which are not in my conscious control. I find myself being like this. So where is my personal essence? This is an idea that I have, an idea I use to interpret this ever-shifting world of experiences. When we investigate ourselves in this way, we see that what we call a dog or a fish or a bird is a composite of feathers and fur and so on, that they're breathing in and out. They are a process of connectivity. They don't have any heart essence of their own. In fact, they're arising as an aspect of dependent origination. On the basis of this, that arises. On the basis of someone sending me a friendly email, I feel happy. If somebody sends me a very sad email that they're in trouble, I feel sad. So I am arising in relation to these events, and how I respond to the event will depend on the factors. Do I know the person well? What is my history with them? And so on. So many factors are gathering all the time to create this particular shaping of myself. What is the enduring essence of it? Well, in our ordinary life, we think, oh, it's just the felt sense of me being me. But when we examine that moment by moment, when we start to do our basic meditation, we do shamatha, calming the mind so we're less distracted, vipassana, so we can investigate the flow of phenomena, we find, oh, everything is passing through. There's no, although I feel I'm a bit like a building, I'm this stable construct, I was constructed a long time ago. Actually, I'm more like a river. There are movements in Tibetan, they call this rangyu, this self-flow strung together moment after moment. So there is no self-essence, and yet here I am. What does that mean? So when the Mahayana teachings developed, when the Buddha was teaching in the Vulture Peak Mountain in Rajgir, these teachings started to point out what are called the 3 doors to liberation. The first is signlessness, that when we investigate how we think about the world, how we talk about the world, how we relate to other people, we find that, as I am doing just now, I'm using language, I'm taking words that I have learned, I'm bringing them into a pattern. You hear them and they create certain patterns for you. These are signs of what? So if I talk about the death rate in England from the virus, it looks as if that's some kind of statistical fact. But people die in different ways. Each of these people will have died with particular kinds of sadness, in an insulation tent, cut off from their family and friends. Their dying was a unique moment, a constellation of their factors. So when we use signs to say, I am a man or I am a woman, this is my work, I like oranges, these signs create a picture which seems to be pointing to something, like a traffic sign says, take this road if you want to get to Berlin. So now I know where I'm going. But when you look at the sign, there's nothing there before the sign arises. The sign is the basis out of which we generate the sense of things truly existing. So every time we speak, when we think, this is like a meeting place of potentials which generate a pattern that we inhabit. Some of the signs which arise seem to refer to the past. We can talk about what we did last year, but the past is gone. What are we talking about? We're bringing together the illusion that there is a past there that we can talk about. And then we might think about the summer. We might have a hope. Oh, maybe this isolation policy will be lifted by the summer and we can go to the sea and swim. That's a construct. That's a set of ideas in our mind. There is no future. It is a pattern, an imagining. So I imagine the past, I imagine the future, and indeed, I imagine the present. I am imagining sitting here in a room looking at a computer screen. Not my favorite thing to imagine, but that's what I'm imagining at the moment, because signs are out there in the world which I am interpreting. So signlessness means is an encouragement to pay attention to 2 factors. One is the interactive play of reading the signs of the world as a flow of shape and codependence, interdependence. The second is to see the sign as indicative of true essence, as if I am talking about something which exists out there. So when in the Mahayana tradition, when we say it is existence is signless, as it says also in the Heart Sutra, it means don't trust signs. They arise in the moment as a shaping, as a kind of massage that allows you to move in different patterns in this moment. They are not indicating something out there. it is the absence of thingness in here and out there that is the heart of the Mahayana understanding. The second of these three doors of liberation is called to be without hope or without aim, Mumpa Mepa. So instead of projecting out some future plan of what I'm going to do, instead of filling the space of the mind in a subject-object dialogue in which I'm thinking my thoughts about this and that, which is in fact the fuel which keeps this deluded sense of an individual self alive, I'm going to be without aim. So when we sit in the meditation practice, in the general shamatha, you focus on your breath or a small statue or a pebble. Nothing much to hope for there. You're just resting your mind on a fairly boring object, because what you want is to have focused attention. You're not trying to achieve anything. You're not going anywhere. But most of our life, we are going places. We are trying to achieve things. So this hopelessness, it doesn't mean a despairing, helpless, collapsing, depressed hopelessness, but it means not to project away from the moment, to stay present in the moment, because when we project, it is the mind that moves. We are going someplace. So we are wandering in samsara. We are people who go from here to there. We go from birth to death. We go from the morning to the evening. We go from our bed to the bathroom. We travel this place and that place. And this movement gives me the sense that I am the moving person. It creates a sense of agency and power. I am the one that makes this happen. But is this true? Because when we start to sit more, we find, oh, thoughts arise and pass. Feelings arise and pass. Memories arise and pass. Plans arise and pass. Everything is moving. I can leap into that movement and become part of it by thinking about the thought that has just happened, or I can be simply present. Thoughts are coming and moving and going through the mind. The mind is the space of the revelation of now. When we do that, we are returned more to the present moment. And the third of these doors to liberation is emptiness, shunyata. It means that the phenomena we see are not full of themselves. Something is there. There is appearance. The appearance is undeniable. We look around, I can lift my eyes and look out the window. I see trees. I see the house on the other side of the road. The house seems to be there. It seems in the moment of my seeing to be full of houseness, and the tree seems to be full of treeness. The tree seems to be an example of the generic category of tree, a bit like Plato's idea of a sort of pure idea that exists in a perfect form, and everything we see is some kind of replica of that. But actually, what I see is shape and color. What I imagine is tree. The tree is created in the mind. Of course, if I run outside and punch the tree, I'll get a sore hand. It's not to say that the tree is an empty illusion and nothing is there. Form is there, but the form has no essence to it of itself. The tree arises from the seed. It grows according to the conditions in a city with pollution and so on. It gets cut from time to time according to the desire of the local council, who worry about the amount of leaves that fall off it in the autumn and block the drains. You know, the life of the tree is independent origination with many, many factors. There is no essence to the tree. So emptiness means there is appearance, but it's inseparable from emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness is form, or appearance, nangtong. Everything that appears is here. It has all the sensations that we have through the senses, but there is nothing to grasp. This is such a strange idea, ungraspable presence. Because our mind is fixated on grasping, what we get is graspable absence. That is to say, when you grasp at the idea of the tree and you start to think about the tree, into your mind comes memories of trees, maybe a favorite tree you climbed when you were a young girl, and that you could sit on the branches and look around. So you have thoughts of trees, memories of trees, but what is in front of you? Your idea of the tree hides the tree from you. The tree has no space to show itself. So emptiness is the invitation to allow the mind to be more peaceful so that we become more receptive. The empty mind allows the showing of the empty world. When the mind is full of thoughts, we get our familiar world. We find ourselves a human being, that is to say, in one of the 6 realms of samsara, at our particular age, in our particular body. We have the specificity of my world. But when we look openly at phenomena and we let the light of the world in, the sounds of the world in, the taste, the smells, the sensation, these are moments of appearance, and we start to see there is no future. There is only ever now, this present moment. In this moment is always full and always empty. It's full of appearance and it's empty of substance. So when you take the substance out of the appearance, you have much more space. Everything is moving in space, moving in space. And emptiness means that when we see other people, especially people who suffer, they tell us a story about their bereavement or their fear or their anxiety, we now can access 2 levels. We can hear a person who is troubled, and when we do that, we give them the sympathy of our heart, we feel a kindness for them, which may be comforting to them in some way, but we're also confirming the truth of their true essence, that they really exist as who they think they are. So from the Mahayana point of view, that's not very helpful. Our aim is to find the awakening of our Buddha nature. And so if you keep confirming that Paul is Paul, then whatever Paul exists as, this composite of memories and plans, of echoes of his mother's voice calling him to come in to eat his evening meal, Paulness fills Paul and hides his Buddha nature. So the more sense we have of emptiness, it allows the space in which we can see something new. We can see the freshness of the arising of ourselves as we move in interaction in the world. That is to say, the knowledge that we have about things, while it's the ticket to get a job and to function in the world, that is to say, to function in samsara, in a realm of confusion, this kind of knowledge for meditators is toxic, because you're developing concepts about concepts about concepts, and each layer of concepts creates an ever-thickening veil which hides the basic luminosity of all phenomena. So what we need is to find the way to unite the truth or the wisdom of emptiness and the connectivity of the non-duality of the co-emergence of ourselves and the environment around us. So in order to do that, we have to awaken to emptiness, not as an idea, not simply as an analytic tool that opens up a bit more space, but as we need a method which brings us into the truth of this. So as many of you will know very well, we have all the different pathways of Tantra in which we visualize ourselves as a deity. So at first, it's as if I'm James and I'm just pretending to be Padmasambhava. But if we go into the practice and do it more, we realize, oh, I'm Padmasambhava who sometimes forgets who I am and then imagines wrongly that I'm James. And then we start to see, oh, these are multiple possibilities of identity. There is no fixed essence anywhere. We can be like this, or we can be like that. And then I can be Padmasambhava in peaceful form, in wrathful form. I can be Tara with every kind of deity that you identify with and enter into the mandala of. What you're doing is very subtly cleaning away the dross, the heaviness, the built up silt, like on the bottom of the ocean. As each drop of dust sinks to the bottom, you get these thick layers of mud. So we are covered in this mud, the accretion of all the things that we have believed in and thought about and concentrated on, and there's a density to it. And when you visualize yourself as Tara, that falls away and you're just in the freshness. You're present, reciting the mantra, open, alive, sound and emptiness, gesture and emptiness. You can do your mudras, do your chanting. See, oh, where does Tara come from? She comes from the Dharma Dhatu. Inside this Dharma Dhatu, the space of all phenomena, is here a particular Pure Land. Then you do practice on Padmasambhava. Where does he come from? Always from the Dharma Dhatu. The Dharma Dhatu shows itself as Zangdopal Ri, the Pure Land where he is living now, and he manifests in that way when you pray. So we see, oh, everything arises from emptiness. So emptiness is then not a theory for thinning out the world, to remove the hooks whereby you would grasp onto phenomena. Rather, emptiness is, oh, this is the undefinedness, which is the basis of my potential to become so many different things. If I was not empty, if I was not without a defining substance, it would be impossible to be Tara, because I would just be James. I would be like a bad actor pretending to be someone else on a stage. It would be a performance and nothing would be transformed. But when we see, oh, out of emptiness, the form of James arises, out of emptiness, the form of Tara arises, both are the same. So in the text it says, there is no difference between Buddhas and sentient beings. These are both the appearances of emptiness. And of course, in the Mahamudra tradition, we have many different stages and styles of practice, but the central focus is to see that everything has one taste. One taste means that when the mind is peaceful and calm, whatever arises, when you're in your sitting practice, whatever is arising in that sitting practice just comes and goes, comes and goes. It has this quality of sahaj, of effortlessly arising, spontaneously arising and vanishing. You are not the maker of your existence. You don't exist as a thing. You are the flow of the luminosity, the ungraspable luminosity, which is Mahamudra itself. So when we do that kind of practice, the instruction is very clear. Don't create yourself out of thought. When you try to do that, it is the excess of your energy, your own enthusiasm, your own wish to secure this territory you find yourself occupying that leads to the veiling of the ever open ground, the natural purity of the mind. You are hiding yourself from yourself by your effort to find yourself, which is why in the Mahamudra tradition, as in Dzogchen, the encouragement is always, don't engage in effortful meditation. Trust the teaching, stay relaxed and open, let the mind arise as it arises. Sometimes our mind is very dull, sometimes it's heavy, sometimes we're so bored with ourselves we can't bear it, sometimes we're sleepy or angry. The mind fills with all kinds of things. Just let it come, let it go. If you focus on the content and you believe that there is some value in this transient content which is arising, then you're going to be pulled towards wanting more of what you take to be good and wanting less of what you take to be bad. So you're pulling some things in the fashion of desire, and you're pushing other aspects away in the fashion of aversion or anger or dislike. What this means is you're very active. This is why we all get so tired. We're tired of ourselves from morning to night, thinking and planning and working things out and being the boss. And it leads to this sense of lonely desperation. If I don't work out how my life is going to be, it's going to collapse. So we have no trust in the ground. We have no trust in the mandala. We're just trusting in the ego, trying desperately day after day to make itself in a way that feels okay to ourselves and seems to work in the world. So when we practice Tantra in Dzogchen, in Mahamudra, we don't want to go in that direction. When we are sitting, whatever comes, comes. Not judging, not building, not selecting, but just let it come and go. Because why do we react? Why do we get involved? Because we feel I'm not enough. I'm vulnerable. I'm not safe. If only I had more money, or if only more people loved me, then I might be safe. If only I was more powerful at work and didn't have a horrible boss, I would be safe. So I need to get more of the things that please me and less of the things which disturb me. Who is the one who feels this? This is our ego self. This ego self has no ground of its own, no existence of its own. It's a habit formation. The more we sit, the more we see, oh, form is forming all the time. There are no fixed forms, but if we have habit formations, if we have tendencies, then you have, through repetition, compulsion, working again and again and again, you compact and you compound and you deepen the sense of being someone. So, trusting. The teacher has explained, the gurus have explained so many times in so many texts, the mind is empty. The mind is ungraspable. The mind is not a thing. So if we just try that and sit with it, thoughts come and go, feelings come and go. We want them in terms of their content. And when you grab the content, you don't see the impermanence. You lose the flow. So to move from limitation, to move from the state of being an ordinary person under the power of desire, bombarded by events, if we want to move out of that, the path is to Allow the mind to be as it is. That is to say, you realize I, as my ego self, I am an imposter. I imagine I am the king of my life or the queen of my life. I am the ruler. I am the one who is in charge, and therefore I have to select the good and reject the bad. And there is no end to this work. Lifetime after lifetime after lifetime goes on. From my window, I can see the birds, the starlings who are building their nests, always bringing in bits of straw. They're busy all the time. And they're always looking around. Is somebody wanting to kill them? Somebody wanting to eat them? See the little robins, really quite paranoid, anxious. They quite like it if a big human being stands near them because they trust us more than they trust the cats. But their world is a world of fear. And they're constantly having to look for food, to find a place to be. You don't see a bird sitting still for very long. Some birds manage it, like storks and cranes and so on. But most small birds are moving and moving and moving. Why? Because they're like us. We sit in the meditation, we realize, oh, I don't have any peace. I am anxious and moving and desperate. I'm trying to get more of what I want and less of what I don't want. And I've been doing it a long time, and it's never brought me to a place of peace. There's always more to be done. Always more. Something to be sorted, something to be developed. Dissatisfaction is built into the very texture of the ego, not because we are bad people, but because we are not people. There is no such thing as a truly existing human being. We are aspects of this environment. We are inseparable from our environment. We are non-dual with our environment. We breathe in, we breathe out, we need food and drink, we walk, we sit, we're always in relation with the environment. We, as a seemingly autonomous separate person in the environment, are co-emergent. So it's only by entering into the meditation practice and giving ourselves a rest from active engagement with all these tempting phenomena which are passing through, that we start to see the possibility of tranquility, of being present, quiescent, peaceful, uninvolved, and yet life is flowing through. So it's not that in order for me to have peace, I have to stop the world. The flow doesn't disturb the mind itself. Our mind itself, which has many names in Tibetan, sometimes called the ordinary mind or ordinary knowing, sometimes called Rigpa, awareness. It's our capacity simply to be present without doing anything, not hiding, not jumping out engaged in phenomena, but like a mirror revealing the flow of experience on and on and on, moment by moment. It's not tiring for the mirror. It's not tiring for awareness. It's just flowing through, just flowing through. The less involvement you have, the more clarity you find you inhabit. The more desperately you try to sort your mind out, to purify yourself, the more difficult it is. That's why they say if you do this general Mahayana practice of reading the sutras, which of course are very beautiful, and practicing to develop compassion for all beings and to develop the two accumulations of wisdom and compassion, it takes many millions and millions of lifetimes to awaken, to gain enlightenment, because you're engaged in activity. And although the activity is generating some value, it is simultaneously hiding from you, moment by moment, the absolute tranquility and unchanging nature of the mind itself. So in Mahamudra, where the texts say you can get enlightened in one lifetime, or 2 lifetimes, how is this possible? Because we do less. When you do less, you get more, because you are not filling the space of possibility. This is the heart of emptiness. The emptiness of the ego is revealed through non-grasping. So in Tibetan they say Dag Zin. Dag means a symbol for I or essence or truly existing something. And Zimpa means to grasp. The problem is in the grasping. Now, why would you grasp at something? If something was precious, if you were going out to a party and you had a beautiful necklace around your neck and suddenly you felt the clasp had gone loose and it's falling down, you would grasp it because you don't want to lose it. That's what we do all the time. We grasp and grasp and grasp. This is our activity. If we don't grasp, what will we have? We have nothing. Oh, but I don't want nothing. I want something. But according to the text, we are nothing. Oh, but I want to be something. Huh? It's not that if you are nothing, you don't have any something. Something is available all the time. Nothing and something are inseparable, non-dual. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. Form is not other than emptiness. Emptiness is not other than form. All the movement of your mind, when you see the ground of the mind itself, is the display of emptiness, the showing of emptiness, the radiance of emptiness. Whether the thought is terrible and boring, cruel, mean, jealous, very disturbing, or very peaceful, very ethical, very life-enhancing, whatever kind of thought is arising, it is empty. So in teachings of Zopa Chembo, we say it has the same ground. Samsara and Nirvana have the same ground. Rigpa, awareness, and non-awareness or ignoring, they have the same ground. Everything arises from emptiness. When you open to seeing emptiness, ignoring, which means ignoring the ground of emptiness, stops, because now you're aware of emptiness. And when you're aware of emptiness, you are aware of all the resources of emptiness, the potential which gives rise to everything. And this now becomes a potential you are part of. And so your life becomes softer and easier, and you can move in all directions. All the different moods, all the different possibilities arise, because you are not a fixed thing, but you are the energy of manifestation, which is inseparable from the ground. The ground is pure from the very beginning. What arises from the ground arises effortlessly, just as like an intuitive thought arising in the mind, a seamless display. It's not a construct. It's not created. There is no one creating it, but it reveals itself. So when we sit in the practice, relaxed, at ease, we feel the movement of the creativity of the ground passing through. And the more we separate ourselves from the delusion that I am the one who is in charge, I have to select and shape and mold, then we see, oh, the shaper, the seemingly limited bit of me, my egoic self, is also part of the flow of the ground. So then, without entering into judgment, without saying this is good, this is bad, every form is the display of the Buddha's mind. And this is compassion. It is the clarity of seeing that there is nothing which is apart from the mind. Everything is the radiance of the mind. And it's compassion because it's free of any reification, objectification. We're not creating any solid substances. In the general teachings on compassion, we have compassion which arises from thinking about sentient beings, considering their suffering, the six realms, and so on. And we feel emotions of sadness and sympathetic anxiety when we consider people in the hot hells and cold hells, or who are dying alone, covered in a plastic screen in a hospital where nobody can touch them. We think, oh, how awful that would be. And then we have a feeling. That is useful, but as we looked earlier, this is person to person, and it consolidates the sense of being a person. Secondly, we have compassion arising from consideration of the Dharma. We start to find out about how the world is actually structured. We start to see our own mind. And on the basis of this, we find relief and clarity. And then spontaneously compassion arises for all the sentient beings who don't know anything about this. Sentient beings who live in a world of consumerist capitalism, who see everything as a commodity, who see power over other people as a wonderful thing, to be rich and to be in control. This is the highest level of achievement. We see people with many selfish, self-serving ideas, and we think, oh, the door to lasting happiness is in front of you, but you turn away to choose this small, nasty little orientation because now you're going to get a big car, or you're going to have people salute you when you come into the office. This is very, very sad. So we feel real compassion. Oh, you're lost in the forest, you're lost in the jungle. There's no space for you to see the bigger picture. You just got your blinkers on and you're chasing your dreams and what your dad said you should do with your life, and your neighbors got a new lawnmower and they can cut the grass much quicker than you. Wow, whole of life going by in this dream world. So the more we reflect on Dharma and do the practice, we link ourselves up to all sentient beings, because we start to see, oh, the ground of me, this mind, has no shape or color. It has no shape or size. It has no dimension. It's not fixed anywhere. It has no beginning and no end. The mind is not a thing. And similarly for all sentient beings, the mind is not a thing. When things come into contact, if you take a lemon and an orange and you put them on the table, you see one is yellow and the other is orange in color. Oh, they're different. They're touching, but they're different. So whenever there's a boundary, we say there is this and there is that, and they're not the same. But when you see the ground, everything has the same root. Everything is a manifestation of the same ground. That is the truth of it. The surface phenomena, the color, the shape, these are secondary and transient. Thoughts arise and pass. You look out the window, you see a particular pattern of clouds, then it changes. Or your eye goes in another direction and you see something else. The mind is moving, the world is moving. This ever-changing patterning is the display of the potential of the mind itself. We are not a thing among things, and there are no things. So this is the third level of compassion, called compassion that has no object, which is not concerned with grasping hold of a definite sense of something. It is the field arises together, the non-dual field. Non-dual simply means not two. Not one, it's not homogenized into one truth, but nor is it split into two different things. So in the Heart Sutra, when it says form is emptiness, emptiness is form, it's saying looks like two things. There is emptiness and there is form, but they're not two. They're not exactly the same, but they're not different. This is non-duality. They are together, not either or, but both and. So this is both a form and its emptiness. This is both empty and this is a form, and they come together. When we see the statue of Dorje Chang, this originating Buddha of the lineage in the Kajupa lineage system, he has his hands crossed over his chest with the Vajra and the bell. This is a symbol of the non-duality of wisdom and compassion, of emptiness and skillful means, which is exactly this. The movement of the mind is only a problem if you don't see the ground of the mind. If you see the emptiness of the mind, the movement is wonderful, beautiful, shining. However it is radiance. But when there is no sense of this open, empty ground, the mind grasps at this huge problem of sorting out all the different experiences of life. What do I like? What do I not like? I used to like that, but I don't like it now. How can that be? You fall in love with someone, then after a while you get bored with them. How could it be? How could it be? Because of impermanence. Everything is unstable. If you try to stabilize phenomena, it's very, very difficult. You can waste lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. So the content of the mind is moving, always. The mind itself is never moving. But what we take to be our mind is usually a particular patterning of the content of the mind. So this is our primary confusion, that we think my mind is mine. It's about me. And that the thoughts that arise from me are defining who I am. Which is why this very simple sitting practice, sitting in a simple erect way, skeleton carrying your weight, muscles relaxed, relaxing into the open space, eyes open, looking out, not looking at anything, but just open to receive whatever is arising. Whatever arises that we take to be inside, whatever arises we take to be outside, let it come, let it go. Don't interfere. Don't build pictures. When you build a picture, you're under the power of the law of exclusion. Because if it's this, it's not that. If it's that, it's not this. And these barriers create conflict, and then we try to sort that out by a hierarchy of values. This is more important than that. Gold is more important than copper. Well, if you want to run an electric current, probably copper is better than gold. It depends on the situation. But we project abstract value into something as if somehow under all conditions, gold would be good. It's not true. Gold has a function. Copper has a function. Food has a function. That is to say, it is situationally important or not, contextually important or not. There is no inherent value in anything. The value arises from the function, and the function is secondary to the ground. So the primary value is the value of openness, of emptiness. The second level of value is its participation on the field of disclosure, the field of becoming, that you're sitting at the moment in a room with a computer and you have the walls and the windows and around you the streets and so on. This is, you are enworlded. You are part of that environment. There is nowhere that you can go to be truly alone. You're always someone somewhere. Even if you go and live in a cave in isolation, you are there with your memories and your plans and hopes and fears and so on. Why is this? Because subject and object arise together. If you try to get rid of the bad object or the bad thought and have only good thoughts, you're still stuck with the fact that subject and object are not the same. And phenomena change in particular rhythms and patterns, and subject phenomena also change in particular rhythms and patterns. It's only rarely that subject and object align in a way that is really harmonious, and then it's gone. But so what is subject and what is object? Both are the energy of the mind. This is the basis for understanding equanimity. As long as we believe I am a subject, I am this person with my mouth and my eyes and my experience, and you're somebody different. we start with an assumption, which is conceptual. It's based on the idea of myself and the idea of the other person. When we relax a little and we sitting, just open, senses open here, what is arising is everything all at once. What seems to be outside registers. What seems to be inside registers. They are equally registering as transient phenomena. It's only in the concept that we take the scissors and cut a line and say inside is inside, outside is outside. That's a thought. That's a naming, which takes us back to the economy of signs, applying signs to things and think that they point to a true entity. So if I say, but this is me, then what is stable about me? Me is a flow of experiences. Outside is a flow of experiences. The wind in the sky, how the clouds are moving, people walking in the street, dogs, birds, everything is moving. Movement of the field, non-dual with the open, empty ground. And inside that field, moment by moment, we are moving. We are this unique expression in the moment, but we're moving in the field. We don't move out of the field, but within the field. So me, I, me, myself is a movement in the field, and the field is inseparable from the ground. This is the heart of Mahamudra. Because everything has one taste, this is the taste of emptiness. What it shows is not defining the truth of it. What it shows becomes an interpretation, because as soon as you start to extract this particular form from the other forms in the field, this form becomes figural or foreground, and the rest recedes into the background. So what's happening? What's in front of you is getting your attention. What's going into the background is not having your attention. It becomes less clear, less insistent. The nuances and details of it become invisible. So this is very important. We, as we pulse in and out of the world, in and out of relation to how things are, find ourselves opening and closing, opening and closing. Something becomes important, then it's not important. And then we see, oh, that importance was momentary. I really wanted a cup of coffee. I got the coffee. I didn't want tea. I don't want the tea. I want the coffee. Now I have the coffee. I have the coffee. I don't want any more coffee. I had the coffee. So what was figural, what was really important, I need a coffee, vanishes. It recedes back. Oh, phenomena are pulsing in and out with me. I am pulsing, they are pulsing. The interplay of subject and object is an ever-changing dance, a non-dual display. This is how the world is. And this is how it has been going on forever and forever. And the more we relax into that, the more we find the freedom of being with phenomena, however they are. Because this feeling arises, passes. That feeling arises and passes. When you realize it's not permanent, this feeling or experience doesn't define who I am. It's just a moment, as if you were dancing and your body took a particular posture. It doesn't freeze, so now you're in another posture and another posture. And if somebody was to take photos of you as you were dancing and say, but which is the real you? It's all me and it's not me, because now I'm doing something different. None of these forms, none of these shapings are reliable as defining images of who we are. That is to say, the surface doesn't indicate the depth. So the traditional example of this is the well-known one of the mirror. In the mirror, you see the reflection, and this is like the surface clarity of the mirror. Many different images arise. The depth of the mirror is nothing. There is no image of the mirror in the mirror. The mirror shows the image of something else. So the image is part of the mirror, but it doesn't tell you the truth of the mirror. So when you sit and you meditate and thoughts arise, maybe some depressed thoughts or angry thoughts, and you have another thought, oh, I don't like to be like this. Then you try to make some correction, some improvement. You think, oh, maybe I should do some Dorji Sempa practice. Maybe I should purify myself because I don't like to have these thoughts. Then you have to hear, what am I saying? I already study and study and study. I hear there is no fixed self, but I'm relating to myself in my meditation as if I was a fixed self that was being spoiled by a depressed thought. This is to say, the reflection is defining the mirror. We look at the reflection, it's not very attractive. We say, this is a terrible mirror. What an ugly mirror. What a stupid mirror. Oh, that would be crazy. But this is what we do to ourselves. Some transient pattern is arising. Oh, I don't want this to be me. I don't want anyone to know I'm like this. I better pretend I'm better at meditating. Why? You cheat yourself because you're trying to come to a stable definition of who you are. Emptiness means there's nothing to grasp. And yet here you are. Emptiness, no essence, no deep truth to be found that you can put in your pocket. But the other side of that is endless display. The text says unborn and unceasing. Unceasing means some new form, some new form, some new form. So when you really taste directly, deeply, the non-duality or inseparability of emptiness and every experience, emptiness in walking, emptiness in talking, in eating, in singing and smelling and tasting and kissing, and everything is ungraspable, but just this. It's just this, and it's so light. It's like the reflection in a mirror. You can't catch it, and yet it's there. So grasping, catching, owning, mastery, irrelevant. This is the neurotic structure of the lonely ego. So now we start to see what equanimity might be. If the manifesting forms as manifestation are not the truth of what is appearing, then they're just playing. They're just playing. When you go to the sea and the wind's blowing and you see the different patterns of the waves, you might say one wave is bigger than another. That could be some reasonably objective opinion. But if you say that wave is better than the other, okay, if you like. Now it's gone. And it's like that with everything in your life. It's a vanishing thing. The wave arises and into the sea. The wave arises into the sea. Nothing to grasp. So on one level, it doesn't matter. On the level of emptiness, it doesn't matter. One taste. On the level of connectivity, of relating to other people, how you manifest matters a lot. So we need to bring the unification of wisdom and compassion, of emptiness and skillful means. If our manifestation is arising out of emptiness, in a field which is arising out of emptiness, then the emptiness and the field is the mother of our arising with the context. So rather than being an individual agent acting on circumstances, making particular patterns happen, which can then be judged as good or bad, likable or disliked, it's simply pulsation of movement beyond judgment, beyond grasping, beyond being an object of thought. This is the third level of compassion. Maybe ninja means there is nothing for your thoughts to grasp. So in the text, when you see this, you say it's like being a thief in an empty house. The thief has got their bag ready to take some things, but when they get into the house, they go, oh, people have left the house, they took everything with them. It's just empty rooms. So the more you sit, when your ego self comes in trying to get hold of something, it doesn't actually need anything. Everything is equal. This is profound equanimity. Equanimity has always these two aspects, equanimity of the object and equanimity in the subject. Both are the aspects of the having the same ground. Equanimity of the object means there is no true permanent value in any phenomena. It is situational. When we invest in something and believe in it, it becomes important for us. As in the Tibetan story of that if a dog's tooth is worshipped and honored, it will start to give out light. It is the mind that has the quality. The mind is clear light. The mind is luminosity. The mind is brilliance. Your mind is brilliance. It's not in the objects of the world. They shine because you make them shine by how you give them your attention. So then you see the object world is completely even. There is no phenomena that is more important than any other. The year before last, I sold off many of my books that I had bought when I was working a lot in therapy and many philosophy books. And these books cost quite a lot of money. And when you take them to the second-hand book person, they give you €1. That's all. £1, €1, nothing. You think, why am I selling these books? I should keep them. But I don't need them and I don't have the space to have them. But I want them because they are important. But to the guy buying the books, he's thinking, hey, who's ever going to buy these things? I'm being kind to this stupid old man. I'm giving him €1 for a book. Hey, come on, I'm being a nice guy. Where is the value? It's not in the pages. It's in my thought about the meaning of the book, because I remember reading the book, teaching something about it, and so on. And now these chapters of my life are closing. And the meaning of these events in my life are shrinking back into me. What was really shining is not shining. Oh, the mind moved and the patterns, the shapes of the world arose and changed. From the very beginning, everything is equal, but it will shine according to how you participate. So that's why we always have our most open level of all-pervading compassion, compassion for every living thing. May all sentient beings be happy, not making any of them special. When we see that all beings have an equal Buddha nature, and all beings have their particular patterns of obscuration, but this obscuration is itself the radiance of the ground, then it becomes very important to see everyone is able to make use of connectivity. So we offer ourselves equally to everyone under all circumstances, however it arises. It doesn't mean you go out as a kind of evangelist, stopping people in the street and saying, have you heard the good news of the Buddha? We're not trying to convert people to anything, but we are available. We're not hidden inside. We're not making choices on the basis of I like or I don't like, but we're working with the potential or the energy of the situation. So that's the equanimity of the object side. Equanimity of the subject side is when you feel liking or not liking arising, don't over-identify with it. Of course, there's a flavor of that, because otherwise you'd spend 10 hours in a restaurant trying to read the menu. You could never come to any conclusion about anything. Something takes your fancy in the moment, but it's momentary. It's not saying the truth of this. So we have our pulsations, but within equanimity. So imagine we are all familiar with the 4 Brahma Viharas, or the 4 immeasurables. When we say, may all beings be happy and have the root of happiness. May all beings be free of suffering and the root of suffering. May all beings experience the joy which is not mixed with any suffering. And may all beings experience equanimity, which is free of bias in favor of friends and relatives and against enemies and people we dislike. These are foundational thoughts that we get in the various Buddhist paths. But what I would suggest to you, particularly at this time, when there are many disturbing views and visions and bits of information about suffering arising from the virus, when you read these 4 immeasurables, and they're a very good thing to read, at this time it's maybe more useful to start with the 4th one, to start with equanimity. May all beings, and probably especially me, because I have to work on myself, may all beings be free of the partiality or bias or prejudice which is towards friends and away from enemies, that privileges this group of people and that group of people. So I'm going to be even towards everyone, even towards everyone. How will I do that? I have to recognize when bias arises in my mind, when I think, oh, this is really, really important. And because this is important, that is less important. Everything has equal value. Oh, so equanimity means calm, really profound calm. Starting with the calm you get from doing your basic Shine Shamatha sitting practice, through to the depth of calm that you have when you awaken to the unborn nature of the mind, resting in that openness. Everything is equal. All thoughts, feelings, and memories are essentially empty and equal in emptiness. All phenomena are equal in emptiness. The emptiness of all phenomena is called dharmata, chuni, means there is no individual essence to any phenomena. It's just dharmaness, thingness, which is emptiness. And the same for the mind. Mind in Sanskrit is chitta, and chittata is mindness, and it's like the essence of the mind, of everyone's mind, is emptiness. Mind side, object side, equally empty. Everything is equal, peaceful. This is in Dzogchen, they talk about contentment, simba, just at peace, however it is. They say, but of course this is very difficult. If you go to heaven, go to heaven. If you go to hell, go to hell. However it is how it is. If your body gets sick, you stay present with the sickness. If your body is healthy and happy, you can stay with that. The thing is not to make a big story about it, not to invest in it some defining truth about yourself. These are transient movements of experience. They arise and pass. You've already had millions of them in this lifetime already, arising and passing. So if we have equanimity, then the 3rd of these immeasurables makes more sense. May all beings have the joy or the happiness which has no suffering mixed in it at all. Usually our happiness is surrounded by potentials for unhappiness. You go out to have a picnic and it starts to rain. I mean, there are so many secondary factors which can somehow spoil the experience that we're having. But if we have equanimity, then the basis for the joy is to be settled in the unborn openness of the mind. That is the true basis of happiness. And this cannot be spoiled. In the Buddhist tradition, this is called Vajra. Vajra means indestructible. Nothing can alter it or change it. The mind itself is not a thing. You can't buy it, you can't lose it, you can't improve it. Nothing can harm it. So when you understand this is the basis of equanimity, and it's also the basis of joy. It is beyond alteration, beyond contamination. And then from that we can see the second, may all beings be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. Well, the cause of suffering is ignorance, it's not recognizing the ground. So we say, oh, this is the ground. I taste this ground. It's here. It's always been here. And then look around, all these people, they don't get it. They don't get it. They think that cleaning their car and looking around and people commenting on their new car, this is the real source of happiness. Oh, you got 3 seconds of happiness and then it's over. And then something else happens. You get 10 seconds of happiness, 2 minutes of happiness, even 1 hour of happiness, gone. So the attempt to find happiness often leads to suffering. So the root of suffering is not seeing the ground. May all beings find the ground of their own nature. May they awaken to their own unchanging Buddha nature. And through that, may all their suffering dissolve, because suffering arises from a cause, and the cause is not knowing who you are. Then the first of these limitless thoughts is, may all beings be happy and have the root of happiness. The root of happiness is the mind itself. On a hot day, ice cream can make you feel happy for a while. On a wet day, having an umbrella can make you feel happy. There are many kinds of situational happinesses, but again, they're very, very short-lived. If you want true happiness, which endures, it has to be connected to the unchanging, obviously. Carrying a big umbrella on a hot day when you don't need it as a sunshade, now you're out in the country and you're carrying this umbrella. It's heavy. Why? Oh, I thought it was going to rain. Everything changes. So may all beings be happy, good, and have the root of happiness, which is the mind itself. It's not a healthy body. It's not having money. It's not having access to political power. None of the things which get people excited is the true basis of happiness. The mind is the truth of everything. The mind is empty and it's full. It's empty in and of itself, like the mirror, and it's also full, like the mirror. The mirror always has reflections. The mind always has thoughts, feelings, memories, and so on. These are the display of the potential of emptiness. So when we encounter these rising waves of anxiety, will I die from this virus? Will the people I love die from the virus? What will happen to the economy? Will I lose my job? There are so many people who work in restaurants and bars and so on. If they are closed for many months, maybe they have to close down. People get out of the habit of going out and so on. Maybe the whole culture will shift. And so the patterns of interaction, which were generating both a sense of identity and a sense of competence and a sense of meaning, all of these can be shifted, and there will be suffering because people will wake up to the fact, I'm not who I think I am. I thought that was my life, but now it's like this. How can that be? So for we who have the great advantage of opening ourselves to the Buddha's teachings, we start to see grasping at the transient, the impermanent, the constructed, and cheating ourselves by pretending that it is stable, that it's reliable, and it's permanent. This is how we create suffering. This is what we see all around. People being shocked because the world that they were used to is starting to crumble. So relaxed, open, connected, and able to respond in whatever situation is there. Of course, different emotions arise and pass in us, and they have a flavor. That flavor is informative. It gives us access to how the other person is. There is some kind of impact, but it's transient. Don't build up an image of who the other person is, because otherwise that image of them will become like a barrier between you and them, because they are changing and you are changing and you don't know how you're going to be tomorrow. So that's a different way of living. It's a way of being open to how it is. And how it is simply how it is. We don't know. So when we look emptiness, equanimity, and kindness, kindness, which is grounded in the equanimity, which arises from emptiness, is very stable, because it's a kindness which is not seeking for anything. It's not seeking a reward of people thinking we are nice or we are kind or generous. It's not a kindness which is full of warm emotions that make us feel good about being able to help, because that just vanishes. It vanishes. And also, we won't be able to sustain it, because in this body, with our emotional structure, we're going to get tired. We offer ourselves, I'm here on whatever terms you need, I'm for you. I'm sorry, I've had enough, I want to go away. So, like the great Namkhai Norbu used to say many, many times, what is your capacity? What is your capacity? Your capacity is infinite as the open ground. It's wide and generous as the field of experience. But if, as a manifestation, you become wrapped around in the cocoon of your familiar self-definitions, you won't be able to let the light of the ground shine through you as you, because you go to a self-referential point. So emptiness purifies habit formations, and then we see the equality of what is outside and the equality of what is inside. And from that, kindness arises moment by moment in interactions with whatever we encounter. That means we can imagine the beings in the 6 realms, we can imagine the people in the hospitals, we can imagine all kinds of things, and be present in a non-dual way, open to it. The mind has no limit. The mind is not something stuck inside your body. It's not a thing. Your body is in your mind. The people dying in hospital are in your mind if you open your mind to them. So nobody need die alone if you open yourself to being present with all the suffering in the world. And you won't be overwhelmed because the pot is very big. The mind is empty. It never gets filled up. The ego is a small pot and will get filled up and will get burned out. This is why we take the sequence as emptiness, equanimity, and kindness. So now we've come to the end. I hope this is in some way useful to you, and thank you for your attention. And thanks again to Kamalashila for hosting this event. And as I said at the beginning, if you wish, you can offer them some dana to help them continue their good work. So I wish you well. Bye for now.
Thank you so much, James. It was so wonderful and very touching, and I also feel, I think, very valuable for everyone in this difficult situation. So thank you for your generosity of offering the Dharma teachings.
My pleasure. Okay.
And supporting Kamalashila. Okay, bye-bye.
Everyone, bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Pleasure. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, James. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye, James.
Bye.
Thank you, James.
Wonderful.
Bye.
Wonderful.
Bye.
Thank you.
So much.
Bye.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Hey, everybody.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
James.
Good night.
Stay
That was
safe.
wonderful.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye, James.
Bye.
Bye, bye, bye.
Thank you,
Bye,
Ben.
bye.